Okay. This is another one of these times where we had something, it was just insufficient. The web is changing and we needed a solution. So we'll kind of cover the motivation for this as we go. But what we're talking about today are just some common conventions. Yeah, let's move forward here. Some common conventions that have been adopted for probably about 16 years now. We call these conventions RESTful, representational state transfer. So it's not exactly that's not an acrostic. Is that an acrostic or is that an acronym? I'm never really sure between the difference of the two. Representational state transfer. Basically, this is how you perform CRUD operations, create, read, update, delete, using a web interface. We've talked about this, I think, have we? You know about params. It's funny that this one pops up on the slide just all of a sudden like that. But, we do have this option, right? We're talking about get requests. We can make a search like we did. We took a peek at Google and you saw that big, long URL with, question marks. And you see it's somewhere hidden in there, your query string. That's what's happening here. We're getting data from the URL. And we're also going to talk a little bit about views. So this is sort of an afterthought, but you will see a demonstration of this. But just like our actions RB or anything else, if we find ourselves repeating ourselves, there's a good chance that we're being silly about this. So you start copying and pasting, you start seeing patterns in your code, dry it out. And we do have an opportunity to do this with views. So whatever your ERB file is, the template before you render a web page, we can make these dry as well. So RESTful routing. Somehow we need to be able to create a post, change a post, delete a post, create and read a post, just to take a look at it, right? CRUD. REST was some guys, and I always, if you watch the videos from previous lectures, I always keep meaning to read this guy's Wikipedia article. But REST was invented around circa 2000. It was a PhD thesis. And just really no one had a good way to perform CRUD operations. And even then, it really is still not a standard. This is just kind of this de facto standard, right? We just sort of unanimously arrived at something that makes sense. And I think that's probably a big contribution of Rails, Ruby on Rails. It really formalized something that wasn't even there, I suspect, even 16 years ago when this idea was first proposed. So this is what REST looks like. These are all just different routes. And I think you probably in your coursework, your Instagram coursework, you've probably already seen most of these, if not all. These are all routes that we define in actions.rb. So if we want to see a post, for example, just perform a simple get request, or in this case, we're actually listing all posts. We would just say, cloud9.com or herokuapp.com/posts. And that would dip into the database, retrieve everything that's stored there, or maybe paginated or whatever, and present it to the user. So that's one route plus one view. Next one, we want to create a new one, right? Got to give us the opportunity to introduce new data into the system. This is the get side, of a tag team here. We've got get, we've got post. We want to create a new post. We're going to need a form to enter this data. So that's a second view. 7 routes and actually 4 views. When the user visits this site, creates a new post, maybe finds a new URL or image from like what your Instagram is doing, that user is going to press submit, and it's going to end up here. The post doesn't have a view, remember. We redirect if the post is successfully added to the database. So this is the create in CRUD. It redirects. Usually I say to the showing all posts. I think it's probably fair to say that's usually what happens. If it successfully does it, it goes back to here and it'll probably show your post right at the top of the list. That's at least what I would expect. If it fails, it just re-renders this form. So this is the standard way of proceeding with REST. This is not something set in stone or like some IEEE standard. This is just for the benefit of you and benefit of others. And it's not always the best solution. So it's just kind of something you have to be aware of. If you don't know where to start with REST and then pare it down as necessary. That's kind of what I like to do. So if we want to just see a single post, now here's another route in my action.rb. And it's going to have that corresponding view because, I think I can say without exception, a get is always going to have a view, or it's always going to present you with some sort of, could be JSON or could be something. In this case, we have that show my single post view in my views directory. It takes that data from the URL, that's the database ID, retrieves it, renders the view, sends it back to the user. So that request response cycle between client and server. At some point, you might have made an error, need to update a description, do whatever, change an image. Here's that fourth view. And the fifth route in our RESTful API, Application Programmer Interface, API. This is actually very similar, but not quite identical to creating a new post. You can use many of the same elements, but the example I'll use today, similar but different. But this allows you to operate and change data that already exists. So in this case, Sinatra will retrieve this ID from the database, present it to the user, probably pre-populate the form. So maybe it's a user, maybe you want to update your first or your last name, and present that to the user. When the user presses submit, or presses update, whatever it might be, it doesn't go to post. Post creates a new one. It goes to patch or put, which in the Ruby world have become synonymous. This is the update method, right? These verbs that they describe, what is patch? I guess patch kind of sounds like an update. You made a correction, you did some patchwork or something. Where they come up with these names, I'm not entirely sure. The one I usually actually go with is put, just because it's short. So this is kind of like a specialized post. The expectation here is that this data already exists. You're not going to try to create anything new. So this gets sent to the user, and again, we have this dilemma, or we have this condition. Was it successfully updated? Redirect. Maybe go back to the view so that you can make sure that your changes were correct. If it failed, you can have the same validations. You create a new one, you need a unique ID. You come down here, you want to update that account. Maybe you changed your email, moved addresses, whatever. You use the patch. Sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought there. You want to create a new one, post. You want to update an existing one, patch. On failure, re-render. That's where I lost my train of thought. If you fail in the update, just present the user with this form. Do that get, I guess it is a get. Do render the form, send it back in the response, and show the errors. Right? So stuff you've slowly been introduced to. So a lot of the demonstration is actually review as well. Last but not least, delete. This one's pretty fail-safe. There's not really going to be a situation where it failed to delete, although it is possible. This one typically just redirects. So you see your some post in your list of posts. You want to get rid of it. You press that little button, bam. Sends this verb, HTTP request verb, delete. And you'll probably end up here, looking at your list of all the posts. Yes. Oh, can someone go fetch that person? Who's going to volunteer? All right. We'll kill time until you get back. So any questions about REST? No, and thank you. Does this make sense, or is this just one of those things that I always kind of cross my fingers and just hope becomes clear in my demo? Yeah?
I was just wondering, why didn't they build this into like HTML in the first place? Why do you have to integrate with Ruby, for instance, to communicate with the server? Why wouldn't you just edit HTML and do that?
Oh.
I mean,
I'm not sure I know the right answer to that question. I mean, HTML serves a very specific purpose. Um, originally, it was simply used to structure research findings. In fact, I think the very first web page is still first web page.
It's like all this just text on a file, right? So
Yep.
why do you need a movie file ending to make communicate with the server? Right?
Well, you don't.
That's what I don't understand. It's like, why not just use HTML to communicate with the server rather than
Okay, well, it's not actually HTML that's communicating. The communication is conducted through a protocol called HTTP, Hypertext Transfer Protocol. HTML is Hypertext Markup Language. So this was invented at the CERN Institute. I think that's in Switzerland. This is supposed to be the first website ever created. This was like circa 1989, I think. Let's just take a look. Let's see if it's how it's changed. Not a lot. It's got a head. Doesn't have any information in it. Surprising it had a head at all. I suspect that this is something that was just added by the browser when it received it. Now, this is surprising. I did not expect to see a header. That is really interesting. But, some very primitive, thank you, some very primitive tags, elements. I'm not sure what this is. It's a table of some sort. I'm not really familiar with that particular tag, but there you go. So this is what it looks like, right? So two different things. Like I think the question was, well, why don't we just use HTML to do everything, right? That's a weird question. I'm not sure I can answer that, right? It's not that I think it's an invalid question. I don't mean any disrespect when I say that, but I mean it's like you have a lot of moving parts here, and they all each sort of have their one purpose. And HTML only serves one purpose, and that single purpose was just giving some structure to this data. This didn't even have CSS or anything, right? Like this was way back, even before that kind of stuff. You put this information in, scientific research findings, it's the CERN Institute, they're doing atomic science or whatever it is. They just want to share this stuff and have a fast way to retrieve it. So they invent HTTP. Give me this document, 5 verbs. Maybe that's the confusion, right? Why is it post? Why is it put and patch? This might be like because, well, they speak a lot of languages in Switzerland, but, maybe it's a multilingual compromise there somewhere. I'm not entirely sure, actually. But this is where it began. And we just kind of broadened our expectations. So
why do you have to make a whole new language? Because there's more than one server-side language. Why not just add HTML?
again, another question. There's thousands of computer languages. Why not just have one? Right? There actually used to be one. I've got an old book. It was called Programming Language 1, or PL1. Let's see if there's anything on it. This was supposed to be the one that ended all programming languages, right? But here we are, and there's thousands, and there's new ones every single day, right? Why? It's awesome. Why not? All right. I don't know what else how to respond to that. Programming languages. Let's see. Let's see how many they come up with. Ooh. 10 best programming languages. Ooh, look at all that. Let's see which ones I've done. I've done Ada, named for the very first computer programmer. She wrote a program for Charles Babbage's difference engine. It was a theoretical mechanical computer. Done Elgol 68. I've done ASP.NET. Done Awk. I've done Lisp, but never done Auto Lisp. Done a little bit of assembly. What else? Oh, look, there's just tons of them, right? We can go through this all day. This was the very first compiled language. And my mother, she made a career in oil and gas. And even up to like the mid-90s, they were still dealing with code that was written in the late 50s. Crazy, right? This is stuff you're loading up on punch cards. So Why? There's just so much stuff, right? It just goes on and on and on. They should just have a count. My supervisor was really big on Z. I'm not entirely sure why. We never really hashed that out, but there you are. Any other questions? I don't think I satisfied your curiosity there, but that's a good question. That's like kind of like a why, right? Like Peter Griffin, where he's a philosopher, and he's like, Peter, we need you to get a job. Why? Right? I don't know. So, okay. All right. Getting back to the work here. Shoot. So that was REST. For a newcomer, really fast. REST stands for Representational State Transfer. It is the de facto standard through which we perform CRUD operations through the World Wide Web. All right, so that's the cliff notes on that. Here's this example. We've seen this before. I'm a little bit confused, but here it is. We need to get the data through the URL. We just use these parameters, this notation. We can put as many as we want here. ID is just really convenient because you know there's only going to be one. There's not going to be any conflicts, and it's just so easy to take that ID and do a database query through your active record object. So you pass it there, you retrieve the data from the database, you assign it to this instance variable, it gets rendered in the view. And this is a big part of the RESTful standard. Here's the ID here, ID, ID, ID. It's not a hard and fast rule. This is just the way we do it. Here's another good example here. So this would be at the end of your URL. You want to get the very first item, presumably because you're using SQLite, or item number 25 in the database. Get those variables, retrieve it through the params ID, pass it to the database. Okay, so last but not least, before we get to the good stuff, the actual demo, we were talking about our views. And we're always insisting that you dry out your code. Don't repeat yourself. And that's true of views as well. One common sequence of embedded Ruby that you're often going to see is error reporting. So, you know, you're creating a new post or you're creating a new user. You're always going to kind of see the same little structure inside of your templates. You know, for I think this is the next slide. This is truly, you could just copy and paste this. You know, whatever you're doing, whether it's a post, whether it's a user, we're using this generic term object. If there's any errors in there, because we tried to update, we tried to create, whatever it may be, just give me each of those messages and print them to screen in a list. We have this exact same thing in the Recycle Freedom app. That partial view, what you see here, this would be defined in its own file. It could be called errors.erb. We want to be able to use this in post. We want to be able to use this in user. Wherever there's a view that has the potential for errors to be returned, we would just embed this partial view. So here's a common ERB. It's just like the one you call inside your Sinatra actions.rb file. You retrieve the template. That's this guy. And you pass it that object. So this is that generified term, right? Is it a post? Is it a user? It doesn't matter. It's just some object. That's about as descriptive as you need to get in this case. In this case, the object is just some user, right? Maybe we tried to update. Were there any errors? Okay, well, let's pass it off to here. This is how we dry out the code. We don't have to copy and paste this little piece and put it at the top of every single file. We define it in one file, and we use this shorthand notation so that there's always consistency. No repetition. Okay, today we will be creating junk caches using RESTful routes. Oh, no, we're not. We're going to be creating users. Now, remember, I was just talking a few minutes ago. This is a de facto standard. This is a really good way to start. But it's not a rule, right? It's not like an IEEE rule. Our app here kind of defies that convention. The trend is to go towards single page apps REST relies on at least 4 views. Remember, we had those 7 routes and we had 4 views, one for each get. This is closer to a single page app. We didn't have to do it this way, but I thought it was a good idea. If we want to post a new cache, this takes us to a new view. So this would be like, well, it just says new. We retrieve this, so this is like 2/7, or is that a fair way to say it? It's more like 2/11 of a RESTful route here. We do not have a delete. We don't have an update. So no delete, no update. We don't even really have a read. We just show them all at once. There's nothing I can click on here at the moment. I mean, this could change, obviously, but will take me to another screen and just display more details, like maybe the exact timestamp, any sort of other raw data that I didn't see fit to display here. This simply does not exist. This is not RESTful, and there's nothing wrong with that. This is actually more on trend. So with that in mind, we won't be doing junk caches. We'll be doing the user. So we're going to do like a sort of an administrative interface. It's not going to be locked down, but you're going to see the example. We're going to see REST in real action here. So first things first, I think, let's just sketch some of these routes out. And we'll come down to this is actions.rb. And when we're dealing with REST, we'll say, we're just going to give ourselves a note here, and we'll say RESTful user API, application programmer interface. So the first one, the very top one, is get. I want to be able to get all of my users. So if you imagine, this might not be for just your ordinary user. This might be intended for an administrative user, just one who can see everybody's details. But for now, we're going to sketch it in. We're going to say get users, do, and end. And I missed a space in there. I'm not sure if it matters, but it looks ugly if you don't do this. So this shows all the users in the database. Okay, next one. We need a route to retrieve a view that's going to let us create a new user. So let's do that. Get, we're just going to recycle this, get users /new. Get view for we'll say get form for creating a new user. This could also be, this could be an administrative function if you want to sign up users personally, or you could just have a sign up page and let anyone come and sign up to use your site, which is, I think, usually the way we go. Okay, so number 3, this is where we actually create that new user. This line looks very similar to the very first one we defined, but we're using a very different verb, a very different action. This one creates new users. And we will make that explicit. Actually create a new user. Okay, that's 3 of 7. We just want to look at one user, right? So this one's going to show us maybe like kind of a truncated version, maybe just an email, maybe just a username. Maybe this one, we just want to take a look at one. Maybe we want to see when this user signed up, or maybe we want to see the last time this user updated his account. Let's try that. Let's define that. We'll say get users, and I only want to look at one, so I give myself the opportunity to pass an ID over through the URL. We're getting information from the URL itself. Show me one user. All right, now we've got edit. These two are very similar. Edit a user. User ID /edit. Very similar. Update. Let's burn through these. So this one's actually pretty close to this one, except the verb is different. Update user. It's not get. You can pick patch or put. I just always go with put. The funny thing is, I think even in the HTTP standard, the distinction is very fine between patch and put. And it's just over time, over the last, well, I guess since 1989? What is that? 27 years? Is that right? 27 years, maybe. The line between whatever original purpose they served is lost, but to all like the most refined specialist, right? Who knows? Who cares? It doesn't matter. It's just interesting to ponder. Finally, one left. So we've got 6 routes. We've got one more HTTP verb to go to take advantage of, and that is delete. Same thing. Delete user /ID. So now we got to fill this stuff in. I think probably the easiest one. Let's just start from the top. So right up here, somewhere, this is like what you're going to see almost everywhere, almost identical. I always say that. I always make these sweeping generalizations, and I immediately think the contrary example. But let's just pretend. So what you're usually going to see is this: users. Give them all to me. Go ask the database, bring them all back. This is something I want to show to whoever made the request. Along with this, so we take this, we have to provide it a form. We haven't created this yet. This is what we'll do next. We'll say ERB. This is probably the way I want to do it here. So I'm going to do something you probably haven't seen, maybe not expected. I'm just starting to get like a whole bunch of different views. I'm looking at these views over here. I've got 4 of them. If I add 4 more, this directory is just going to get longer and longer and longer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to organize my views that are specific to my user inside a subdirectory. And that subdirectory is called users /index. Actually, I need that symbol as well. There we go. So the way this lines up is over here in views, because just by default, Sinatra always looks inside of that views folder. If I provide it, a new subdirectory, which is going to be called users, I provide that subdirectory, it's going to look in there instead. So I need an index. All that to say, I need an index, index.erb, just like that. So now, let's take it really slow, as always. Let's refresh this guy. We haven't added nice user interface elements or anything like that. But if we want to see what we've done so far, which is very little, we do this. Show me all the users. So that's going to hit that route. It's going to look inside the database, and it's going to show me nothing. Well, it still shows me my raccoon, but nothing down here, right? That's because there's nothing in here. It's rendering an empty view. Okay, so I'm just going to do a little bit of copying and pasting just to spare us all the trouble here. Here's my index. We'll go a little bit slow here. So, I want to give myself, my user, a greeting, just, give him a tip as to where he landed. Add that. Okay, my fellow scavengers. Let's add a little bit more. I kind of hesitate to do this all at once. Now I'm sort of regretting that, but we'll walk through it nice and slow. Here's that user's instance variable. This is the one I just assigned over in actions.rb. So I get users, I retrieve every user from the database, and I say, draw me this view. Find all the Ruby code in there, execute it, and give me some HTML so I can send it back in the response. That's what's happening there. That's that user. So every single user, it's going to look inside each user in this array. And it's just going to draw this stuff out here. It's going to say, okay, well, here's my user ID. Here's my username. Yeah, I should have gone slow here. Here's my email. Let's just skip ahead. I'll do the next one slow. All right, let's refresh that and see what it looks like. Don't I have any users? Oh, I didn't save. There we go. All right, there's me. Here's Lanny. And here's the date that we joined, which by the looks of it was sometime earlier this afternoon. That's UTC. I don't know if that starts in Greenwich. I'm not actually really sure where that comes from. But that is actually when I populated the database. That's how I know. So what I did here, and this is the kind of why I'm all of a sudden regretting, is because this ties in nicely to one of our new actions, right? So we've got a good head start on this part of our RESTful interface. We've met one of these criteria. We're allowed to see all the posts. Had I gone a little bit slower, I might have shown you that, okay, well, what we're doing here directly ties to this one. So let's do that one next. The reason I say that is because, look, I went to the trouble of setting all these things up as links, right? So there's Danny. Way down here, you can see it's asking for user ID number 1 and user ID number 2. Of course, if I click this, what's going to happen? Shout it out. Actually, that's not what I expected at all. Should have said Sinatra. Oh, no, it does know this ditty. I was expecting to see Sinatra doesn't know this ditty, but then I immediately remembered that, yeah, Sinatra does know this ditty. That ditty is right here. It's just not doing anything, right? So let's do the same thing. It's kind of the same as what we've got here, except instead of finding every user, we're just going to find one. And we know where this user is coming from because we have so graciously provided ourselves the user ID in that URL, that GET request. So we don't want to render this index, though. We want to render a non-existent view. We haven't created this one yet. We'll go a little bit slower on this one, I think. Here's a show view. Right? So this is just what I like to call them. You can call them whatever you want. But I think this is in the spirit of REST anyway. Show is usually what Rails calls it. That's the practice I've adopted. Okay, so show me one user. So when all is said and done, this user's subdirectory is going to have 4 views. We've already got the show all. Now we need the show one. Show.erb. What are the other 2? Edit. And what's it? Show, edit. Oh, and create. We haven't done that one yet either. So we got a lot of work to do. Okay. So I'm going to see what I can copy and paste. So I'm going to do like that really slow thing off the start. I just want to, reveal some brief details about my user. Here's that brand new view. So currently, I want to see the details about this Danny user. Previously, it said nothing. So if I refresh this, now it's oh, yeah. Nil class. Any guesses? What happened there? What did I forget? What did I forget? Oh, can you see it? Okay, so here's my view. Sinatra is saying undefined method name for nil class. So whatever I think I assigned, I didn't assign. And it's given me this very helpful hint. It's saying, okay, well, it's on line 3 of your show view. So this is the one I just created. This is what I'm looking at right here. Here's line 3. It's saying user is nil. I could have sworn I set user. What did I set? Users. There you go. Right? Danger of copying and pasting. That's why they make it so difficult on your compass stuff, right? Kind of got to be mindful of what you're doing. So identified the problem, added a little bit of information that we can view about our user. Here's the name and here's the email address. All right. Okay. Let's add a little bit more. So we'll go a little bit slower. Now, the reason why I'm adopting this structure, just in case you're wondering, so here's my new show view, And what I'm saying is the reason why I'm doing this, article class equals user. And a closing article. And I'm going to add some information. The reason why I'm using this article class is very simple. I'm just being lazy. I don't want to have to repeat anything, or at least not too much. Here's my index. And this is how I've structured the main page. You land here, you start seeing articles, you start seeing headers. The reason I'm doing it is because I've got CSS styles. So I got to do less work when it comes time to do some styles. And we'll make them look a little nicer when the time comes. So there we are. There's index. So inspired by index, I'm going to add some information here. Currently there's nothing. You can use the old-fashioned P tag. And I'm going to say this user.name has been scrounging through your trash since user.created@. So when you signed up, that's when that guy started coming sniffing around your trash can. And people get sensitive about that. Not me. People around my neighborhood, we're on these Facebook, we're suburbanites, we got like a million children. People hate it when like bottle pickers come through. It's like, I don't know. That seems awfully stingy to me. Like, people are making a decent buck going through your garbage. People on Facebook hate that. I don't know what it is. So maybe that's just me. String format time. So you've never seen this one before. Actually, let's take a quick look at what this looks like without that string format. Okay, so I got my closing P tag, just adding a little bit of information. Refresh. Okay, so Danny, if you guys can see that, Danny has been scrounging through your trash since 2016-11-30, 7 o'clock and 23 seconds Universal Time Code, UTC. Let's make that a little bit friendlier. So this is where that string format comes in. And this is just something you can call on these active record timestamps. And this is sort of in the style of an old, well, it's not old. It's, still used. It is old, but it's still in use today, the C programming language. This is kind of the approach that they took to formatting strings. So string format time, it's going to look really cryptic. What is B? What is that, right? That's the string format. Let's just take a look. So I can add something there. It's going to draw that data out, and it's going to present it in a way that, hopefully is a little bit more friendly. So I refresh. So this universal time code has disappeared, and it's been replaced with November. B means give me the full name of the month. There's also a lowercase b, just because I know you're curious. So I use the uppercase B there. Where do these symbols come from? You just got to read the documentation. Otherwise, you never know. So if I use that lowercase b, just watch what happens. So currently says since November. Now it says Nov, right? The shortened version. Use that lowercase b. It's going to give you the shorthand, whatever. So lots of different symbols. You can use them. I'll show you the symbols that I chose for this application. So I'm going to change that to the big B. Find the day. That's %D. Number between 01 and 31. And the year. And you know what? Just so to make it look nice, I'm going to put a comma. So this is actually a literal comma. There's no special significance. It's not prefixed with that percent sign. It's just going to be treated as a string. Percent, capital Y. That's the symbol for year. So let's see what that looks like. Okay, Danny's been scrounging through your trash since November 30th, 2016. A lot nicer to look at, right? Rather than getting that UTC. Okay, let's add a couple more things. I just wanted to show you all that neat stuff. Yeah, you know what? We're going to leave it. Thing is, we're always so short on time, and it's just like I should maybe just take the shortcut, but I don't want to confuse anything. Now, when I'm designing RESTful, okay, so we're going to skip ahead just a little bit. When I'm designing RESTful interfaces, I typically like to allow the user to make changes. So the user came along, found a post, found a user, whatever it may be. I like to offer an opportunity to edit in this interface. So this is what it currently looks like. I'm just going to wrap it in p tags again. That's a decision I made earlier this afternoon. So I just want to give an opportunity to edit. If you're really astute here, you're going to see, okay, well, this one matches up with that route we defined, as part of our RESTful API. It's taking that user ID and it's passing it to edit. We haven't created this one yet, but Sinatra does indeed know the ditty. It's right here. So you're going to have to create another view. Long story short, so many views. That's the other thing about Rails. It does a lot of this boilerplate stuff for you. So you can just go through, and it's more like constraining stuff rather than building stuff up from scratch. You can get a lot of work done in Rails. Okay, that's just an aside. Let's do one more. No, we're going to save that one for later. That one's weird. What we are going to do, though, is just make this a little nicer to look at. So there's a good reason why I chose to sort of loosely structure my views using it was inspired by index, right? Because I want to use some of the same, I want to adopt some of the same styles. So in my index file, I have a class for cache. And I want to recycle that with my user, and I want to make some tweaks. So everywhere I see a cache, I want a user to piggyback alongside. So these styles are going to apply, and this is just the first one, right? What I'm hoping, this is going to be a dramatic change. I hope that this stuff gets pushed over. Let's see what happens. Should be made a little bit more presentable, I think. Nope. Okay, let's keep going. Oh, you know why it is? Because I did mobile first. Nope, that's not it either. Okay, let's try applying that to something else. Let's find user. Let's find the next cache. Cache image, don't need that. Cache H1. Where there's a user H1. Let's see what that changes. Hopefully this guy right here. No, still no changes. Keep going. There's user. Just piggybacking. All these styles have been defined. I'm just recycling them. Cache H2. User H2. And that's all of them. So this should give us something nicer to look at. Oh yeah, so it did make a couple of changes. It centered this information about the longevity of the involvement with the app. That looks a little weird to me. Let's see if I can see where I find where I fixed it. This is where you really want to keep your stuff dry. And I admit I kind of neglect this when it comes to CSS because I really don't like using CSS that much. Some people are just so good at it, they put me to shame. So I'm going to just make it so that the cache, here's the problem I'm addressing here. I don't like that this is centered, right? Or maybe it's this one that's centered. I can't remember. One of these things looks weird, and this is the problem I'm trying to fix. I just want everything to align left like normal. So if it's a cache, I want that to be center. If it's a user / cache, the user is going to be missing that thing. So whatever I removed it from is going to move to the left. Oh, there it is. Okay, so I think that looks a little better. I don't know if you remember what it looked like, but this whole thing was centered. Okay, so that's that. Let's put another couple of style improvements. I think there's one I'm missing here. I hate that when that happens. You know what? Let's just copy and paste the whole bloody thing. There we go. So these are my updated styles. This is, I always spend so much time trying to make it look a little bit presentable, but this is the new stuff. Style to delete button, some input delete. We'll come back to this if necessary. All right. I think that's good. Okay, let's see what it looks like. Hopefully it's a little bit more agreeable. Okay, there it is. It's more in tune with the style. This is all on GitHub, so if you really want to see and want to parse what I did there, that opportunity is for you. So looks a little nicer. Here's my edit. Don't have a view, but I can visit. It's just that I haven't created it yet. So let's do that. Okay. Here's my edit route. This is what I just clicked on. Need to give something here. Let's make sure I don't miss anything. Oh, yeah. Yeah, first thing we need to do is just find a user. So when you're calling this route, you have to give some indication of what user you want to edit. And that is determined by the value you pass through this ID parameter. So not unlike before. We just say user equals user.find and give me whatever matches up with params ID. Just like that. Okay, then render me a form. So a lot of these views look the same, right? It'd be nice if there was some way to dry this out, but this is about as dry as it's going to get. So let's take this, edit, voila, and let's make a new one up here. New file, edit.erb. So we filled in a few of our views. I think most of the get ones we've done. No. We're still missing one. We've got show all. We've got edit. We've got show one. We actually don't have a create one. Let's just do that now. Let's get all these done in one go. So this is going to be my new view. I want to create a new user. And because I'm really on a roll here, not actually create a new user, get a form for creating a new user. That's what's going to happen here. There we go. We don't need this, but remember that little trick. We got that error reporting. I always just pass an empty user so that it doesn't trip up that error message handling. So if something happens in here, we want to be able to report that error. If we don't give it something to work with, we just get one of those nil class errors. There's no error method defined on nil class is what it would say. Okay, so let's take that. Let's fill in some of these blanks. This is just ordinary ERB stuff, and I'm going to do the same thing I did before and do some copying and pasting. Here's my new view. This one's a long one. We'll go through it. Creating a new view. And again, you're going to see those sections, the headers. All this stuff I already previously styled, so I want to reuse them wherever possible. And I want to add a new scavenger. That's my header. This is this is telling the user where and what you're doing. You're going to try to save this. You're going to send a post. The errors or it's either going to be successful or it's going to fail for some reason. Probably because of your validations. If that's the case, remember, we post and we fail, we render a view. We post and we succeed, we redirect. Since we're re-rendering this view, we've got all the errors contained inside this user class, and we can just show them to the user. Nothing new. We've done this 2 days now. So here's our form, matching up to the post method, label, name, just usual stuff. Let's see what it looks like. Let's see if it works. Okay, so here I am on users. Or did I do the show view yet? That's the edit view. Did I just do the new view? Yes, the new view. Yeah. Okay, so user/new. So we're going to have to still make some general improvements to our interface. But this should take us to, well, you know what? I think I forgot to render it. Let's take a look. Oh, this is it. Look at this. I'm doing edit, and I haven't done anything for edit yet. I did something for new, but not for edit. Edit, as you can see here, is blank. New is the one I just defined, so that was the problem. Okay, so let's save this. This doesn't look saved either. Refresh. Okay. Maybe someone's signing up for the service. You know, maybe they should say sign up instead of add a new scavenger. When I was doing this, I kind of perceived myself just adding users, adding my friends, and just, you know, putting people in there manually. Let's create a new user and see if it works, though. Let's create Manny, to whom I am indifferent. That Lanny guy, he can just go, you know, whatever. But Manny, him and I are buds. Okay, so here's secret. Create, add new scavenger. I hope this works. How come I don't see any users? So it redirected me. I'm successful. See? I think. Did I just mess that up? I did. What did I forget? Shout it out. What did I forget? It's so obvious now that I'm like staring this blank screen in the face.
The S.
That's even more ridiculous than that. I forgot to fill in this. Right? I just posted. Here's my new interface. All right, someone got it. That's good. I totally forgot to do that. Okay, so I got to create a new user. And that's happening here in this post route. So just a recap, let's see where we're at. We show all our users, done. Get a form for a new user, done. Show me one user, did I do that one? Yes, I did. Edit user, so we still haven't done this one. This is what we're really missing, this and delete. So we're what? We're about 4, 8, I don't know, maybe 8/11ths. If I'm thinking this, we're 8/11ths of the way through creating our RESTful API. Let's create a new user. And just, I need a guiding hand sometimes, so I bring up my notes. Okay, so first thing I do, here's my user instance variable. I'm creating a new user. And all I need to do, because you know when you define this stuff, you usually, you know, you say this, you say email, and then you might say params, get me email. But the thing you notice right away is that this is all a hash, right? And params is a hash. So why go through this whole thing and pick and choose every single bit of data? Why not just pass the params hash? It's got all the data I need. So that's what I'm going to do. Pass it, create a new user, and then try it out. We'll say if this user saves, this is successfully written to the database, redirect to /users. Otherwise, just render that same view again. Say users /new. See, I'm making this string into a symbol. I know it looks weird to me too. Sometimes Ruby is just so nice to look at, and sometimes you see this kind of thing. It's like, not sure what to make of that. Okay, so that should work. On success, we redirect. On failure, we render. And if there are failures, this user is going to contain all those error messages inside its object. So let's try it out. I might be able to refresh this. Maybe we'll get that error finally. Or confirm form resubmission is what it should say. Oh, no, there it is. It actually submitted it. There's Manny. We still have a problem here. This might not be obvious. Let's try to create another user. Users new. I'm going to try to create the exact same guy. This should not work, right? Because we can only have one user with the name Manny at capitalhill.ca. This is like, just basic stuff. Can't have more than one email. That doesn't make any sense. We're using this as a login. Now I've got a problem because I got two guys named Manny on my site. So this is, going to help us when it comes time to delete. But we've had a major oversight here. I don't have any validations on my model. There's nothing to constrain this. This is something that I have to define in the model itself, the user's model. You said, remember this from yesterday, Monday. We did this, all this sorcery here. This just came straight off the GitHub site, copied and pasted, nothing changed. This allows us to encrypt our passwords. But I also want to make sure that I validate email present true. And this is the weird one. This is what I'm trying to remember. Uniqueness true. Just like that. So not only does the email need to be present for a new user to be created, it needs to be unique. This is just one of those nice things about Active Record. It just makes this stuff so nice for you. And I'm going to just double check on my notes here to make sure I didn't forget something. And remind myself of the other checks I need to do. The other thing I want to do is make sure that the user actually provided a password. You know, in retrospect, on Monday, I can't believe I forgot this stuff. So we're fixing it now. I just want to make sure that's present. And I also want to make sure that the user provides a name. So this, there could be many Dans, for example. So this is where I would say my name is Danny or Lanny or Manny. I can have more than one person with the name Manny, but those two Mannys can't have the same email. I want the email to be unique. You can just call yourself whatever you want. It doesn't matter to me. Okay, I just want to make sure that it's there. So that's our validations. Let's try this again. So let's try to add, oops, I said NMU. I would have thought Sinatra wouldn't know. Oh, okay, yeah, no, that still makes sense. What did I do there? There's a validation error. What? Present validator. Oh, this is that redirect thing, I think. Is it? Present true. Oh, present here. Oh, presence. Right? I got, okay. Has to be present. No. Check presence. Right? Okay. Hang on. Let's fix this. Oh, there we go. Okay. Argument error should disappear. Let's change my thing back to, there we go. Okay. Let's try adding another guy. Wait. There we go. Doesn't matter. It's going to fail. So I can put any junk I want in there because email, there's already two guys named Manny. It's been taken twice. Computer doesn't know that, but you can't have this, right? Let's add some more errors. Okay, I forgot to enter my name. There we are. Now I've got two errors. Name can't be blank. Email's already been taken. This is like the kind of stuff a user expects. And if you want a user to keep using your site, this is the kind of stuff you have to cater to. I'm always like balancing myself as well. Okay. So where are we at? We have a couple of ways to approach this problem. We have our users. Hang on. Let's take a look at all those guys. Danny, Lanny, Manny, and Manny. We have two ways to deal with this. We can delete one Manny. We haven't implemented this yet. Or we could edit one Manny and change this. Doesn't matter. I don't know. Let's do edit first. Because delete's actually very simple. So starting from the top. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the one I think we're missing. Edit and put. So these two halves of the same coin here. And delete. Okay, so we're getting down to the bottom. Getting very close to coming to the end here. Here's our edit ERB. And again, if you want to dig into this, please, by all means, clone this from my GitHub site. In fact, I encourage you. I thought of another possible application for this. I think it would be neat maybe to like have a tool for like private investigators, right? You're following someone. You can prove that you saw this person, at these GPS coordinates at this time of day. Does something like that already exist? I don't know. I know one private eye and he's pretty tight-lipped. All right, let's take this, add this. Very similar. Here I'm editing. Very similar to new. I want to create a new one. I probably could recycle most of this. The reason I don't, it's going to be not obvious at all, but look at this name. Email, name, password, name equals name. The problem I've got is that I need to keep my user data separate from the trickery I'm carrying out on the server. This is kind of weird, right? This is not stuff you're going to know. This is just kind of stuff you pick up as you go along, and you try it one time and you get on Stack Overflow and they say, oh, you can't do that. Everybody knows that. You can't do this. There's no method put. There's only two valid methods here. That's get and post. Why? I don't know. I have no idea. I wish I did. This is always going to be one of those two. So I always use post, and the way we trick Sinatra into making this a put request is this little line here. Just an input type, just like any other. The only difference is that it's hidden. It's got this method attribute, which Sinatra knows. Sinatra is going to see this, one of the first things, and it's going to know that you want to go to the put action in your actions.rb file. This is how we trick them. So to keep this data separate, because I'm really lazy. Remember how I did this? Remember how I created a brand new user by simply passing the params? If I pass that params by itself, I'd have that method and I'd have a problem, right? I'd have this value. I'd have this value here and I would fail validation. So this is really weird, like HTML stuff. This is another one of those hacks that we've all just kind of adopted. I can embed this inside of an array called user, and I can retrieve it back here like this. Put user, we say user find by param, get the user from the database. Again, I don't want to sacrifice time stumbling on this, so I'm looking at my notes. Get the user from the database. This is the one you want to change. If the user successfully updates params, so you can't pass it the whole params because it's got that weird method, but I can do this. Param user, right? This is like an array, or it's a well, this is actually a hash because that's what we're passing. This is what active record needs. But by wrapping this thing in that array there, that user array, user and user, and omitting this one, I've got a nice convenient shorthand. So is this better? I don't know. We got kind of a little bit of wet code, but you know what? That's a trade I'm willing to make. Okay, so we got that. Come back to actions. We've got our put. If we successfully update, as always, we redirect. And I'm going to send myself to users / whatever this guy was. User ID. So I'm making a change to the user. Naturally, I think, okay, so I've edited it, made some changes, pressed go, pressed update, whatever it is. I want to see that these changes stuck. So I go look at the view, users / ID, that just shows me that one user, the one I just changed, right? So I'm going to see that feedback immediately. Just a nice way to do it. If I fail, oh, there's a problem there. There's a problem on this line. While I'm continuing, see if you can spot it. If I fail on this update, I want to re-render this thing. I want to pass that user object back to the view and give the opportunity to the user, whoever's manipulating this data, to make the correction. Maybe added a duplicate email, whatever it might be. So did anyone spot the error here? This one's pretty subtle. I'm interpolating a string, and the string won't interpolate unless I use those double quotes. Right? Oversight on my part. I caught it before I actually did it. There we go. I think we're almost there. I think we're like 10/11ths of the way through our RESTful API. Assuming that this works, well, one thing we've got left to do is delete. Okay, but let's try to update. So we're going to fix this duplicate, which I introduced into my database. I'm going to look at, say, let's go down to here. And let's edit. Here's Manny. Oh, I just mistyped. This is my good friend Fanny. All right, so Fanny at Capitol Hill used to be Manny. Now we've got this thing. Password is still secret. If it works, it's going to redirect me back to my show all users view, and I shouldn't see two manis anymore. Oh, this one's really goofy. Oh, and I still blew it anyway. Look at that. It didn't interpolate. What happened there? That's weird. So I got a deeper issue here. What happened? Let's go find out. So this first thing, this is weird. This you'd be banging your head against the wall. The problem is here I've got users slash. That is distinct from users without the slash. There's a really fast way to fix that. I think this is right. I think I can just do this notation. That's what we call a regex. It's going to say, do I need this trailing slash? This is optional. That's what the question mark means. So that's a really fast way to fix it. Let's see if it works. Still says that. Okay, so that's clearly not the right way to do it. Let's just erase that. Oh, that's post. No wonder. Hang on. This guy up here. See, I got confused there between get and post because the path there is identical. So hopefully this will work. That's on the get. There we are. Here's my fellow scavengers, Danny, Lanny, Manny, and Fanny. Okay, wonderful. We got one last thing to do, and that's delete. Actually, we got a couple things to do, but this is the more important one. So at some point, and this is where I like to do this, right? We haven't provided any sort of button. We've got this show interface. So let's take a look at Fanny here. Click on the link. We're looking at her personal details. I can edit. This is where I also like to put my delete button. Okay. Now, before I do that, I just want to show you something. This is really kind of weird. So I'm going to go to my app.css, and I've got some styles for these deletes. And this is kind of what I want to show you. It's just one of these weird things, right? So I'm just gonna comment all this out. That's not going to apply. All that stuff, and I'm going to show you what a delete button looks like in the nude, so to speak. Let's take a look. Okay, so here's my show, and I'm going to add a few more lines to my show view. I want a delete button right underneath edit. I want it to be colored red or something, Let's take a look. Right below here, right below my edit, put it in a paragraph of its own. This has to be a form. Right, this is one of those kind of weird things. Why does it have to be in a form? Because how are you going to make a delete request, using that HTTP protocol? You can't make a delete request with this A tag, right? So we kind of got a problem here. I got to make this into a form. It's going to be really ugly. And again, remember that put. I've got to trick this thing. The delete looks like a post. We're kind of spoofing it. But when it gets to Sinatra, we let it know. We kind of hijack this old-fashioned HTTP process, and we say, well, no, we don't want to post. We want to delete, and that's what it calls. So all it's doing is saying, okay, well, delete the user. Yep, sure. Here's the ID that I use for styling. This is a little bit of JavaScript here, actually. When I click this thing, this is an event handler. It's just going to say, you sure? You sure you want to delete Fanny? Right? That's what it's going to say. So let's take that out. Did I save it? No, didn't save it. Saved it. Refresh. This is what it looks like. This is that naked delete button. Doesn't fit in, right? This is no good. Ideally, I think, and this is again just personal preference, I like it to look like a link, just like the edit. So I'm just, I'm going to kind of trick the user. I'm not even going to reveal that this is actually a form button. So here's the styles that I applied. Maybe we should just kind of go a little bit slow. Here's my input delete. We'll leave this here for now. And we'll take that one out. Okay, so that one's not really going to do anything yet. Actually, this one might be totally erroneous. That's okay. Let's change a few things. Let's change the color. Let's see if this makes a difference. We're going to kind of progress and see what all these different things do. So here's the naked button where we dress it up a bit. Nah, doesn't look like much. Okay, let's try this. Background, none. Seen this one? This is where I set that raccoon, right? My mascot up here, he's a background image. So whatever's the background of this delete user, I'm just taking it out. No more background. Starting to kind of look like a link a little bit. Border. That's the next obvious choice. We still got left with this thing. Let's take it out. All right, looking more like a link. Change the font size. Oh, I got two font sizes. We don't need both of those. Actually, I wonder which one was right. Font family, we're just taking the serif fonts away, so it's going to look a little bit different. Actually, that might not look different at all. Oh, no, made it bigger. Okay, so it's kind of matching in size. Okay, a few more steps. We don't want it centered. That's a different style. I want it to kind of line up with this one. Won't get into details here, but we still got this gap. And that gap is caused by the border that I styled around the form, right, for other places in the thing. So I really just cheated here. I just said, okay, take out all the padding, take out anything that's kind of been added there artificially. And then I did this negative margin, right? So now it's kind of going beyond the bounds of that previously defined form. It's just bumping it a little bit to the left. And just through trial and error, I found that 0.7 nicely lines up with the edit. And as always, it's pretty responsive too. It should line up all the way over here as well. Yep. Okay, good job. I wonder why my raccoon is loading so slow. I guess they're probably tired of me just drawing it from that other site. Okay, so let's bring that back. Okay, so now we got to delete this guy. All it does now is it's saying, "You sure you want to delete Fanny?" And we haven't defined anything here yet, so I can do this safely. It's going to try to, well, it's going to do nothing because I haven't told it to do anything yet. Here's where I just went. Delete, nothing happened. Okay, easy. This one's probably the easiest and the shortest. We say first, actually, no, we can do this a shorthand way. I just recalled. Here we are. We'll grab, we don't need to grab the user. We say user, delete, and we've got this convenient method that takes an ID. So whatever happens here, we're going to delete this. We're pretty surprisingly sloppy about this. I mean, there is the chance that this isn't going to delete and you're going to still have this record lingering around there. But we just go charging forward. Trust that the database isn't going to be too corrupt if this fails for whatever reason, and just redirect, right? So we're going to delete Fanny, for example, or maybe we'll delete Lanny. Let's take this. Save. We want to do this properly. So starting from back here, so yeah, let's just delete Fanny because this is convenient. Notice that hover effect. I press delete. Are you sure? Yes, I am. All gone. So it redirects me back to my show all users, that big long list, and now it's just me, Lanny, and Manny. Okay, now there's something else. Any questions? Well, I'm thinking what it was. No, is that like clear as mud? You guys keep showing up, so this must not be boring. Although a lot of you are gone today. Maybe it was boring. I'm not sure. Okay. I think there's a couple of improvements we can make, though. This may or may not be worth the time. Let me just consider my notes here. Oh, we do have one more thing, though. Sorry, yeah, that's actually a good point. Good thing I remembered. So we've got our 4 new views. Let's just clear this up a little bit. We don't need too many of these. Actually, we did need that. Here's my show, my index. I'll leave actions. But I also want to open new and edit. There we are. So these are, as part of this RESTful user API, I have created 4 views to go along with showing, to go along with retrieving all the database, to edit, and to create. So all those CRUD operations have a, well, not all of them, but most of them have a corresponding form. So between all of these forms, so here's edit. I've got this this error, piece of error code here. We got new, same kind of situation. I want to create a new one. I've got the same code, right? So we're talking about drawing out the views with partials. These were the last, very last set of slides. This is just good, really goofy. We should be able to get rid of all this stuff. So this isn't going to just apply to users. Eventually, this is also going to apply here. So I'm just, for the sake of my own organization, I'm going to create a new file. Actually, I meant to put it in the other one. Let's just do this for now, though. Errors.rb. So this is going to contain this code. What I meant to do, that's ERB. Hang on. ERB. There we go. I actually meant to put it up a directory. Because there's no reason why, when I create a new post, sorry, not a new post, a new cache, there's no reason why I can't recycle this one here too. So I'm going to take this, copy all this good stuff here, and I'm going to dump it in here, just like that. And so now, since I've defined it in this external file, I can use this and I can just plunk it into place in any view wherever I feel it's appropriate. So I won't make any changes to edit just yet, but I will do this. Let's see if I can remember this off by the top of my head. ERB errors. Now I got to pass it the object containing these errors. So what we see here. Now I think there's a new way to do this. This is why I'm kind of like hesitating. See if I can remember the old way to do this. I think it looks like this. Locals object ampersand user. Just like that. So that's not going to work just yet. It's all closed up. Everything's wrapped up. Let's spread this out a bit so it looks a little nicer. And we got to close that alligator tag. Just like that. So this isn't quite ready to go yet. But I'm kind of curious to see what the error is going to be. I'm going to see if you guys can sort of have an idea of what might be happening here. If I go to users, this should fail. Nope. Let's try this one. Let's go to Danny. Let's go to edit. So this should fail. Of course it doesn't fail. Okay. I was hoping to have like a big, big error message here. The problem is, now here's my new view. This is my partial view. I don't have this generic term. I have this user. What I really want, if you can remember back to the slide, is just something generic. Object, because it's not necessarily going to be a user. It could be a cache. It could be an Instagram post. Whatever it might be, just give it a general name. Here's my edit. This is that object. I can name this whatever I want. This corresponds to this guy right here. That's how I'm passing that value. So whenever I need to pass a value to a partial view, that's how you do it. I think there's actually a nicer, newer way, but I can't remember off the top of my head what that is. Let's try it out though. Let's take this, refresh. Let's say I'm trying to update my information. Maybe I meant to change my password, but I forgot to set my name. We know because of our validations, something has to be in there. So if I say update, I should see 2. Name can't be blank. Name can't be blank. The first one is coming from here. That's the code that this, that injects that code right into the middle of your page. The second one is coming from here. So I've dried out my code. I can get rid of all that repetition. Take this one. Let's do the same thing for new. Here's that error class. Actually, probably even have the exact same thing for new cache as well. Since we're on a roll here, let's change that. So 3 places where I had this repetitious code. Is that going to work? I think that's going to work, but except this time we're not passing a user, right? We're not passing a user to that object. We're passing cache. Right? We can use it over and over again. It doesn't matter what we're using. If we're using an active record object, something that inherits off our active record base, you're going to be able to pass it. You're going to be able to get error messages if they exist. That's just how it works, and that is just a really nice thing. Okay. I think that's good. We are very much out of time, so a couple of enhancements I would have liked to have done, given the time. I'll probably just kind of drop these in. But, I should have a user account link here, right? Currently, if I want to go add or subtract or sign up new users, I have to enter it in manually. So I don't have any of that stuff here. That's, time permitting, that would have been nice. Okay, so let's just leave it like this for now, though. I would be remiss if I didn't do one last thing. Push, git add, git commit, get demo, get product of demo, status, get push. Hope I pushed that to the right repository. Get remote -v. Oh yes, good thing. Week 5, day 2. Well, one last thing. I want to push it to Heroku. Heroku. Is it gonna fail? Heroku login. It's only one thing we can do. We can try it. Daniel at capitalhill.ca. Sometimes I forget my password. Okay, logged in. Get push Heroku. I guess we should have checked the Recycle Freedom page before we did that. Recycle Freedom Heroku app. This guy. Oh, still uploading, so it might actually take a couple seconds. Okay, so it looks like my deployment is done. All is well in the world. I was showing this off. Here's one of the disadvantages about Heroku, right? It's a free service. And as I've kind of lamented before, if you're not constantly using it, it will go to sleep. When it wakes up again, all that fun stuff that you uploaded at, this meant to say Jameson's Pub. I was just there yesterday. And this was the one from last day. All that stuff goes up in smoke, right? Heroku is clearly not for production deployment. It still works, but there it is. Here's our users. We should only have 2, I think. Here's my fellow scavengers. Hey, what happened to my styles? What happened? Oh, there it goes. Okay, so I didn't refresh. That's just caching or whatever. Okay, so I've got a couple styles. Let's just to make sure everything's working. That Heroku isn't jerking us around here. Let's add Manny. Create. Wonderful. There's Manny. We have ourselves, the makings of a pretty decent app. Any questions? All right. There's your deployment. Please try this out because we actually usually save this until next Wednesday. And we used to do that with GitHub too. So I've kind of gone off the rails and just started showing you guys that stuff right away. Try deploying it to Heroku because that really is a good test of your work. And it will introduce you to a whole new collection of headaches. So there you have it. I'll write up the lecture summary, and we got Kevin here. Where's Scott?
Scotty's sick.
Sick. All right. There you go.